Hey, welcome everyone to Caspio Live. This is Ned. If you're able to hear me okay, please let me know via chat so that I can begin today's Caspio Live session. Just a quick hello so that I know you can hear me will suffice, and we will commence with today's tutorial. Hey, Piotr, thanks for the letting me know. Can hear me? Perfect. All right. Hope everyone's having a good day. Today we have an exciting topic. We're going to talk about QR codes and how they can make our applications more intelligent, and also how by scanning these QR codes, we can streamline workflows and make things a bit more efficient for app users or anybody else who scans the QR codes. All right, let me know if you have any questions before I begin. We have three different use cases we're going to look at today. The first one being something pertaining to restaurants, where if you go and visit a restaurant, instead of getting a paper menu, you can scan the QR code and then you can see a digital menu. So if the restaurant wants to reduce their carbon footprint or minimize waste and ink and no longer have to print paper, which are added costs, they can go digital. And if you're thinking about this from an entrepreneurial mindset, just think about this. You know, how many restaurants have you been to? And if you think this is a good idea, you might be able to sell this to restaurants. If you create a model or an application around this menu where you even provide an incentive where they log into their account, they can modify the menu so they can see all the changes via that same QR code right there in the restaurant without having to reprint additional menus. So one thing that you will probably never see in the application is the actual QR code itself. This is something that's generated by the QR code extension, and then normally you would print this out, and then their marketing team can create a little plaque or a paper that maybe it says, scan this QR code to view the menu. So as you're sitting there at your table, you scan it, it brings up this link, and they can see the menu. I've even seen now where you can, at your table, you can submit your table name along with the order when you scan the QR code, and then they bring the food to you at your table without you even interacting with a waiter. Unless you need to, you can call them. But yeah, these QR codes are really a great way to send data, look at data very quickly without having to exchange or interact with users. All right, so that's our first example. Our second example is inventory. You may have seen this example in one of my videos, but I wanted to bring this up because, again, the QR code will likely be somewhere in the warehouse. You can place that next to the product. So if you do scan it, you can see additional information about that product. And when you do scan the QR code on your phone, it would likely bring up the details page of that product. And no, you will not see the QR code here, but I brought it into the application anyway. It's really just meant for you to see all the information pertaining to that product, maybe quantity, price, because there could be a lot of information about the product itself. So we're going to learn how to set that up as well. And finally, with Wi-Fi, wanted to give you something other than seeing a URL when you scan the QR code. This would be very helpful. Let's say you go into a hotel, and maybe you can relate to this. If you're checked into your hotel room, but you misplaced your Wi-Fi credentials, they probably gave you a little paper, or maybe it's somewhere in the room, you can't find it. Just imagine there's a QR code somewhere inside the hotel room, and it says, scan this QR code to access the Wi-Fi. You scan it, it's going to pass this information into the login screen, and then you can quickly log in and have access to Wi-Fi. And obviously the password eventually will be encrypted, but I decided to display it anyway here. In order to use this QR code, you need to have a QR code app on your phone. So it's a little different than using your camera. It actually has to be a QR code app itself. With these examples, you can use the camera. It brings up the URL. You're going to use your thumb to press on that pop-up button, and then it takes you to the actual product. But again, you can also use the app itself for these two examples. Okay, so those are my three examples. Let's go inside Caspio and let's see how they were created. We're going to begin with the restaurant menu. I really love this idea, actually, to even create a SaaS type business out of this. If you want to pitch this idea to restaurants to reduce costs and always be able to update their menus on the fly within the app, and it all runs from that one single QR code. And you can have multiple QR codes per restaurant. You know, maybe they have a beer and wine menu for drinks, maybe they have dessert menu. So typically you would see a 3 QR codes, or maybe they combine everything within one single QR code and it shows all of their offerings on a single menu. But that is something that you can offer to restaurants. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. My inventory example actually has 6 tables. We're really going to be looking at one table, and then my restaurant menu and my Wi-Fi table for hotels. So let's start off with the restaurant menu. So we have the restaurant ID. That's always a mandatory field. It's a unique ID to identify each row in the table. We have the restaurant name, menu QR code. This is where the actual generated QR code will be stored. And then we have the status, which is an optional field. I definitely recommend it because if your QR code fails to generate, you get the reason why, and then you can troubleshoot. You saw it as a sticker? Yeah, it could be a sticker too. Yeah, that's perfect as well. All right. So in my table, I have just one example, Fun Bites. You can see my QR code generated successfully. And then inside the table, you can download that QR code, and now you can send that QR code to a restaurant. They can include that on their table, either as a plaque or, as Piotr is mentioning, as a sticker. And as soon as that's scanned, the user will go to this page to view the menu. So let's see how we set that up. Let's go into our designer first. And we're going to take a look at the restaurant menu. I have a product details. All right. And when you create this product details page, you do need to create a filter so it filters out the restaurant menu for that restaurant ID. Okay, because every menu is going to be unique to each restaurant. But it also depends on how you set up the application. If you're just a single restaurant doing this, you don't have to do this. It's just as simple as providing a URL to the menu. So you don't need to pass the restaurant ID. You might want to pass the menu ID if you have multiple QR codes. Okay, in that case, you need to have 2 tables. You have a restaurant table and you have the menus table, and it's a one-to-many, right? So drink menu, food menu, and dessert menu will be in the second table, and you have a QR code for each, and then you can provide 3 QR codes on your table. But in my example, just a little bit of a simpler use case where I have one filter that filters out based on the query string parameter restaurant ID. Okay, so restaurant ID filter by is equal to, and then we use the query string parameter RID. And I'll explain how it filters in just a moment. Okay, but this is the setup that you would need. And then what you want to do is simply go to your deployment and grab the URL. So you copy the URL to that details data part where you see the menu. And inside the integrations, you're going to install the QR code generator. You're going to open it. And something I should have mentioned in our previous live stream when we did the AI agents, it's just to orient you a little bit around this page and also the columns that you see in filters on the right-hand side, which you can expand. It's actually super helpful to use the columns. Not only do you see information here in front of you, you see the agent name, you see the profile name, object, status, credits used, initiations, completions, errors. You see all the details pertaining to that QR code. If it executed successfully, was it completed, did you get any errors? But also, if you end up having a long list of agents, you can group them based on the profile name, which is especially helpful. So if you click on the columns here on the right-hand side, and you simply drag the profile to the bottom, you can see how it groups all of them based on that profile name, and then you can now find all of your agents. Okay, or you can remove it, and you'll go back to the previous menu to revert back. Also, you can search, right? So this is instant. So if you type in, let's say, oh, I built my agent for Wi-Fi credentials, you can quickly find it by just simply typing, and you can also see the activity period in the last 2 days, 7 days, if you want to filter out even more. Definitely use this feature here on the right-hand side, mainly for grouping. Okay, that way you can stay organized and you never have to lose your agents, and especially if you end up having a long list of agents for your applications. All right, so let's take a look at the restaurant menu. I've already built it. This is my agent name. I created a profile. It's basically the default profile. Okay, it uses the black squares for the QR code, the white background. Of course, you can personalize that a little bit more depending on branding, but I just kept it as the default setting. We're going to hit next. You find your table, and I want to generate the QR code when a record is inserted. So when you add the restaurant to your table, that's when we generate the QR code for that menu. Now, if you're thinking about this, well, let's say I want the restaurant to log in and update the menu within the application, then you're going to set up another agent for record updated as well. So if you change the pricing on the menu, I want the QR code to take in those changes. So that's based on update. So eventually, if you do end up doing what I just mentioned, you will have two different agents. We're going to hit next. And here's the link that I just copied from the deployment screen. So here is the link from that deployment screen, and just a little bit more is needed in order to pass the restaurant ID to the details data part. Most of you are probably familiar with this, but you add the question mark to initiate the string. You give that query string parameter a name, which was RID. You add the equal sign, and then you insert the restaurant ID field as a parameter by clicking on this arrow, and then you locate the restaurant ID primary key. Okay, now when you scan that QR code, it's going to bring up this link, but it's also going to pass the restaurant ID to that details data part. And because we're filtering that details data part based on the query string parameter RID, it's going to show you the menu for that particular restaurant. You can go as far as adding an image or a logo inside the QR code. Again, this is for branding, also very helpful. And then on the final screen, you simply want to generate the QR code inside that field that you added to your table, and also the status, if it failed or didn't, or it didn't fail to generate. And when you click save, now it's going to work every single time. So when you add a restaurant to your table and you scan the QR code, you're going to be able to see that restaurant menu pop up because you passed the record ID. Okay. And just for fun, if you want to test this out, you can use your own phone. You can scan the QR code, and you will be taken to this page where you can see the menu. Let me know if you have any questions on the first example. And look, if I'm you and you wanted to get into a business on a SaaS model, I think providing this menu to restaurants is a really great idea. Okay? You don't even have to sign the NDA for me. Just take the idea and run with it, because there are many restaurants that can probably benefit from having digital menus. I've seen it before, but I still see a lot of restaurants using paper menus. And I can't even imagine the nightmare of having to change the menu if something changes. Let's say it's a seasonal menu and you want to update the appetizers and you have something else. It's constantly having to reprint menus for their customers. All right, let's go into our second example. Well, let's bring it up here, which is inventory management. Also done basically the same way as the restaurant menu, where you scan the QR code and you simply go into the details of that product. There isn't much of a difference here. Let's go into our table. And let's pull up the products. So we have all the product information here along with the QR code that we plan to generate and the QR code status. Now I have two agents running here. One is when you first add the product into this table, I want to generate the QR code. But let's say somebody buys that product. We also want to update the quantity that we have left in stock, so we use the update. agent as well. So when you update something, I also want to regenerate that QR code to take in that update. So next time somebody scans it, they see the updated quantity that we have left in inventory. And as you can see, I already have some sample data in here, and every single product in my table will have, well, that's the product image. This is the QR code. All right, so let's go into my designer. Let's go into product details. Let's click on that, edit filter. Now here you'll see two different filters, okay? One is connecting our results data part to our details data part. That's standard. Everyone, hopefully, if you've used Flex before, now you know how to you know how to do this already. It's super simple to do. When you click on the actual product on the results page, you want to bring up the product's details that equal to the product ID. And that's simply going back to manage products. And when you click on the product details, you get there. But another way to get there is by scanning the QR code. And that is the second filter, which we just looked at using the restaurant menu, which product ID equal to the query string parameter, and you give it a name, which is PID. The next step, just like before, you go to deployment. You're going to get the product details link. You copy it, and then you set up your QR code. So you go to integrations, open up the QR code generator, and then you can see I have two different agents. This one is on insert, and this one is on update. So if I edit the insert, I'm using the same profile. We're going to hit next. That's my table based on insert. Click next, and there's the link that I just got. Let me just paste the link underneath so that you can see it. That's the same exact link, right? All you have to do is just add the question mark, parameter name, equal sign, and you insert the product ID as a parameter, and you have the same exact link. Again, let me just explain why we have to do that. We do that so when you scan the QR code, let's say you're inside a warehouse, you scan it on your phone, it's going to bring up that little button that you can click on, but when you click on it, it passes the product ID to the details page. That's how the system knows to filter out the information for that product. And the last step, just like before, you store the QR code into this field and you get the status. All right, so then inside my application, when you add a new product, I'm not going to go through all the steps of adding the product, but when you add this information, you're going to be able to see that product here. You get the QR code that you can print, and you either place that product, the QR code on the product itself, maybe on the shelf. So when somebody in the warehouse is walking by or at the store, they can scan the QR code and they can see the latest information. Now the update works almost exactly the same way. So if we go back to this one here, I should probably rename this to update so it's clear. Next, you can see record updated. And I want the update to happen on any one of my fields in the product table. So if I update the quantity, if I update the product name, if I update anything else about that product, so that's why I'm using all fields, we're going to regenerate the QR code. Or you can do selected fields. Maybe you're just updating the quantity, and that's fine too. Again, same link. You click next, and you regenerate that QR code. So if we go into my table, I have to do it from the table because I don't have the edit capability. So let's go back to my table just so you can see the update. And we go into the products table. And let's say we're looking at the wireless mouse. Currently we have 50, but somebody made a purchase and now we have 40 left in stock. So what ends up happening is when you go back to manage products, as you can see, this number already updated because we made a change in our table. But if you scan this QR code on your phone, I don't have my phone on me. I thought I had my phone on me. But anyway, if you were to scan it and you click on the little pop-up button, you're going to be able to see what you have left in quantity, which is 40. Okay. Now, I apologize for my formatting. This really should just stay 40 without the decimal and 2 digits afterwards. And I can change the formatting later, but you know, yeah, it really shouldn't have 2 digits after the decimal here. It should just say 40. Okay, again, the QR codes, as I mentioned, you will likely not see that in a web application. These are meant to be printed and placed in a physical location. All right, so now let's go into my last example, which is the Wi-Fi login. And the profile is set up a little bit different for this QR code. But first, let's go into the table. And the two pieces of information that we need here, besides the hotel ID and hotel name, we're going to need the Wi-Fi name and the Wi-Fi password. Again, we want to store our QR code in the table, and we want the status as well. Now, inside the Designer tab, all I created was a report that displays the Wi-Fi name, Wi-Fi password, and the generated QR code. The idea here is simply to print the QR code once it's generated and place it somewhere inside a hotel room. Okay, because I'm guessing probably all the rooms in a hotel will use the same Wi-Fi name and same Wi-Fi password. So here's another idea if you're an entrepreneur, if you're thinking about this from a SaaS perspective, is to offer this to hotels, this solution. Okay, you just have to ask yourself if that's a good business model. Are hotels willing to pay the money for convenience for their hotel guests to use this? You know, it's something you have to do research on. But let's go ahead into our integrations now. Let me take a look at my comment. I also saw that they are showing QR codes on TVs, those hotel TVs. Yeah, that's also another good example. Like a lot of these TV apps for streaming, like Netflix and Hulu, if you want to activate your account, you scan the QR code, and then it takes you to the URL where you can log in. And as soon as you're logged in, it basically passes the information through back to the TV. And then once again, you're logged in. It's a much more efficient and quicker way to gain access to the account. Yeah, but you can apply it to the hotel use case, especially if hotels are offering streaming services to people to use their own accounts. But you're right. Like even on the TV, you can have the QR code. All right, so my last example, which was Wi-Fi, let's take a look at the agent. But before we look at the agent, let's take a look at the profile for Wi-Fi credentials, because this profile is set up a little bit different. The first two examples that we looked at, we were using a URL linked to website. That's the QR code type. But as you can see, we provide a lot of QR code types that you can choose from depending on the use case. But most common is to have a link to a website. So basically, when we looked at that restaurant menu, that was a link to a website. When we looked at the product details, that was a link to a website as well. This example we're going to look at is Wi-Fi credentials. So let's take a look at the second profile that I have, which is the Wi-Fi credentials. So the setup is going to be a little bit different when you create the agent. So let's take a look. So this is all the same. You choose your profile. You click next. You select your table, which is the hotels table. And here's the difference. Before, we were asked to put in the URL. So when you scan the QR code, it brings up the URL, and then you can pass information. When you choose the Wi-Fi credentials, you get to select from the Wi-Fi encryption, and then it's asking for the Wi-Fi name, which we have in our table, and it's asking for the Wi-Fi password, which we also have in our table. Okay, again, all of the QR codes come with the logo or image, so if you wanted to, put some corporate branding around it, you could. You click next, you're going to store the QR code and status inside your table. And now, if anyone in today's live stream has a QR code app that scans, once you scan that, you will see how it passes the information, which is the Wi-Fi name and the Wi-Fi password. Okay. I'll leave that open here for you if anybody's interested in scanning that QR code. Don't use your camera. It's not going to work here. It's going to say something like, there's no information inside this field. You have to actually use the QR code scanning app that you download from the App Store. But it's so simple and yet so useful. And it's definitely helpful when it comes to convenience for many businesses, actually, to leverage the QR codes in many, many different ways. Let me see the comment here. I meant on the hotel TV system where you may scan QR code to get Wi-Fi credentials. Or that. Yeah, I've seen that before as well. But I think my favorite thing with the TV is if you're having issues logging in, let's say you've been logged out of your Hulu account or Netflix, and you try to log in, they give you the option to log in with the email and password directly from the TV, but it's much more convenient to use your phone when it comes to typing the email and password because you don't have to click through all the letters on the TV if you can relate to that. But with the phone, they also provide a QR code that you can scan. You click on the link, you go to your phone, and you log in via your phone, but now it logs you inside a TV app as well, simultaneously. Yeah, you don't have to keep logging in. That is the most common one for me that I've used. Yeah, Apple is now doing this as a TFA, correct. All right, so those are my 3 use cases that we wanted to cover today for our live stream. I hope that you enjoy the content. I will just reiterate one more time that if you are using any of our extensions inside the integrations tab, definitely once you open them, definitely take advantage of the profiles and being able to group your agents because it helps to be able to locate them easier. And from the organizational standpoint, it's much nicer to see them grouped rather than one at a time because believe me, in one of my accounts, I already have 15 agents created and it's becoming a little bit more challenging to find them. If you have good naming convention, then yes, you can find them easily, especially using the search function, but grouping definitely saves you a lot of time. All right, so for those of you who attended today's live stream, thank you so much for coming in and joining. I hope that you enjoyed the content and hopefully you get some ideas on how you can use the QR codes. If you want to see something different, let me know via email. I always make that available to people that attend the live stream. Here's my email. Shoot me an email if you want to see a specific use case, and I will bring that into the live stream. We'll build it. Well, I'll build it in advance, and then I'll show you how it was built. Okay. We don't have a topic yet for the next live stream, but it will be available on our YouTube channel within a day or two. So if you're curious to see what's going to be in the next 2 weeks as the topic, just tune into our live stream and you'll be able to see that. Or tune into our YouTube channel to find it. All right, thanks again for joining, and I will go ahead and keep the comments running. I will end the live stream, but if you have any last-minute questions, just submit them in the chat, and we will close today's live stream. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you next time.